Hello and welcome to Media Monitor on the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. This is where we take a look inside the world of media, analysing the trends, the issues and the reporting of some of the week's top stories. I'm Peter Ndoro, and this is what's coming up on the show today. The online news publication Daily Maverick has just launched a weekly print newspaper called Daily Maverick 168. What are their chances of success with so many papers going out of business in recent times? Well, we'll speak to the paper's editor, Heather Robertson. Our international editor feature this week takes us to Ivory Coast, where we catch up with South African journalist, now a news correspondent in Abidjan. We'll be speaking to Liane de Bassompierre to hear what's news in the West African nation. And in our Back in History feature, we go back to the year 2000 and neighboring Mozambique, find out what massive rescue operation South Africa assisted in at that time. So that's the show, but remember you can engage with us on social media using our Twitter handle, which is SABC Media Monitor, and also you can share your views with us on WhatsApp, and that number is 065 862 4548. That's 065 862 4548. Now, before we get into our highlighted stories on the program, let's first take a look at what's on the front pages of your Sunday newspapers this morning. Let me start with the Sunday Times. And this is leading this week with a story about a guns to gang syndicate. The paper is reporting the assassinated top Detective Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kinnear was on the brink of cracking a syndicate at the police central firearms registry. Kinnear, who was shot and killed 9 days ago, apparently persisted with a case that was threatening the criminal underworld and a corrupt police network. The City Press is leading with what it's describing as the post office grant crisis. It appears that the cash-strapped SA Post Office is begging its own subsidiary Postbank for 1 billion rand to enable it to process 13 million social grants in a week's time. The acting Chief Financial Officer, Lenny Govender, apparently sent a status update to the board on Monday, spelling out the dire financial position that the post office finds itself in at the moment. The Sunday Independent has a story that has experts worried about issues at the Army. They say that calls for members of the SANDF to discuss ANC matters is worrisome, and it's an issue that all South Africans should be concerned about. Political analysts Professor Tinyiko Maluleke and Dr. Ralph Mateja say in the paper that history has shown that once the army gets involved in politics of any country, mutiny usually follows. The Sunday Tribune in KwaZulu-Natal headlines piece refers to disgruntled MK vets. They say that their demands in the province have not been addressed. This comes after the vets took to the streets on Friday, threatening to shut down the province if their 14 demands were not attended to with immediate effect. And among those demands, the banning of foreign nationals being employed across professions, 250 million rand to be set aside for ex-MK, MVA and other liberation veterans for housing, and also the unbanning of the ANC Youth League. The Weekend Argus on Sunday is leading with the story of the murdered top cop Charles Kinnear, who was investigating a gun racket at the police headquarters in Pretoria, which involved high-ranking officers before he was killed. It's believed that he was about to arrest 2 brigadiers, in fact, implicated in cloning firearm registration and giving licenses to gangsters who used them to buy automatic rifles. The Sunday World is leading with a story that reads, inside Sodi's 34 million rand kickbacks. Now, the paper says that Minister Thulas Nxesi and Deputy Minister of State Security Zizi Kodwa are among politicians that have been flagged by Zondo investigators. This as tenderpreneur Edwin Sodi is being investigated by the Commission for paying senior ANC officials a total of 34 million rand between 2013 and 2019 as his companies scored tenders worth over 2 billion rand. And a new title is upon us. Yep, the newly launched weekly paper, the Daily Maverick 168, is leading with a special report looking at the COVID-19 pandemic 6 months on. There's also a stark warning about the QAnon conspiracy theory, which has grown online in the US, that has apparently landed here too. QAnon is a wide-ranging, unfounded conspiracy theory that says that President Trump is waging a secret war against elite Satan-worshipping pedophiles in government and business and the media. Now, South Africa recently launched a mobile application, COVID Alert SA, to strengthen the country's digital contact tracing efforts. Up until now, the National Health Department has been deploying teams to conduct manual contact tracing in every district. This new app, though, seems to have been hit by some disinformation regarding privacy violations. SABC reporter Nozintombi Mia has been taking a look.
Download the COVID Alert mobile app from the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. The app has been zero rated by mobile networks, so you can download it without any data costs.
Last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa urged South Africans to download the COVID Alert app.
The app will alert any user if they have been in close contact with any other user who has tested positive for coronavirus in the past 14 days. The app is completely anonymous. It does not gather any personal information, nor does it track anybody's movements or location. So it is safe to use.
But not all are on board.
It does seem like a good app, but I beg to differ. Something's fishy.
Perceived privacy invasion remains a sticky issue.
Not a good app, in my personal opinion. That's why I'm not downloading it. I'm not installing it on my mobile or on any application or any platform for even that matter. Just based on the terms and conditions of the permissions you're agreeing to.
However, data and digital experts have rubbished these conspiracy claims.
There has been a lot of backlash about this app and its capabilities. At Worldwide Works, we are in favor of this app because the government has chosen the privacy route instead of taking routes that other countries have taken by tracking GPS location data, which we do not support.
The app needs active user participation to be effective.
This app was already paid for with taxpayer money, so its revenue has come from a place that doesn't need to work off a user's data.
Local creators say the app will help break the chains of transmission.
This app will only help if every South African who has a smartphone will be using it.
It will also make the process of contact tracing easier.
You're able to notify those close contacts who you may have encountered in public spaces like supermarkets or taxis or banks, etc.
But the constant misinformation being spread about the usefulness of the app could render it ineffective in the long run. Nozintombi Mia, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, let's catch up now with Nozintombi Mia, who's been watching this story for us. Nozintombi, thanks so much indeed for joining us. It's one of these curious cases when the president said, please sign up for this app, it's going to help us. And then almost immediately, some people were casting doubts and even spreading disinformation. What were you able to find out about what's been going on? Hello, Nozintombi, can you hear me? Hello, Nozintombi, can you hear me? All right, okay. It looks like that we can't get hold of Nozintombi Mir at the moment, but we're going to try and dial her and talk to her about this new app, which is supposedly going to help us contact tracing, and the privacy violations are the ones that have been a concern for a lot of people, and doubts have been raised about those privacy. But we're hearing from the experts actually that that is not the case, and in fact that the platform that's being used here in South Africa is much better than the one that's being used abroad. So where this disinformation started coming through and the doubts started coming through, we're not quite sure what's been happening there, but we're hoping that Nozintombi Mir can give us a little bit of a guidance with that, and hopefully you'll feel a bit more rest assured, because the more of us that are actually signed up for this app, the better the contact tracing, and the data will pick up the people that you've come into contact with, and it is all anonymous. We're told that none of the data there is going to be used. But as you can see, some of the headlines that have been coming through on the newspaper articles questioning and putting doubts in people's minds about whether you want to be safe or not getting involved in this app. But as I said, the experts are telling us that they're safe and that we don't need to worry about that too much. The president, as I said last week, telling us, please sign up, help our contact tracing. We're on level 1 now, and we need to be even more vigilant now, otherwise we'll start to see this second surge that has played out in countries like France and Spain in particular at the moment. The United Kingdom going through a bit of a surge as well now. The Prime Minister there being forced to force some restrictions again there, but people are defying him. So if we do the right things and assist the National Health Department, we may save ourselves a lot of pain. So this app is one of those apps that we can use in that battle. All right, we're going to take a break, and hopefully we might be able to catch up with Nozintombi Mir to give us a little bit of more about this story and give us some reassurance. Remember, you can engage with us on social media using our Twitter handle, #SABC Media Monitor, and also share your views with us on WhatsApp, and that number 065 862 4548, 065 862 4548. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, more for you right here on Media Monitor.
Hello.
Ntatemo Famadi, good day to you. Where did you first find out about our insurance?
Yeah, I got a call from this guy. He said he wanted to compare my insurance. After asking me what car you drive, model and so on, he gave me an offer, and that was over 470 less. I couldn't believe it at first. I thought it was a scam or something.
SMS saved 44211 or call 08 600 60,000 and Chencha Daiding.
In the trenches of business, don't lose sight of the bigger picture. With Nedbank's expertise in cross-border transactions, we'll facilitate growth while optimizing your cash flow. To guide your growth, search Nedbank Bigger Picture Business Banking.
Rice doesn't get better than this. Speckle.
We live in a new high-tech environment. Because of technology, some of the world's wealthiest people are tech entrepreneurs. Tech is how we play and how we work. For your tech conversation, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
In these tough COVID-19 times, the nation looking to government for solutions. But the fight against the pandemic has been plagued by widespread corruption. The lives of frontline workers put at risk and citizens denied of much needed aid and personal protective equipment. The president assured the nation that he would deal with corruption decisively. Will there be any action against the corrupt, or will it be business as usual? Watch SABC News for ongoing coverage on COVID-19 corruption. SABC News, independent, impartial.
Cabinet decided that the country should now move to alert level 1. The move to alert level 1 will mean a further easing of restrictions on gatherings. The maximum number of people who may attend a funeral is increased from 50 to 100. Existing restrictions on sporting events remain in place. The sale of alcohol at retail outlets for home consumption is now permitted from Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 1700. We will be allowing travel into and out of South Africa for business, leisure, and other travel with effect from the 1st of October. The curfew will now apply between midnight and 4 a.m.
Having grown in an entrepreneurial family, it is no wonder that Shoki Matsi had no trouble venturing out on her own when the time came. But instead of following her mother's footsteps of fashion, she chose to go into construction.
I was raised by a very strong, independent businesswoman. That's where my love for business began.
Experts forecast that South Africa's construction industry will contract by 14.3% this year. Although this is a bleak outlook, Mati is not deterred.
The industry has been tough. You have major corporations, major construction companies letting go of the construction aspect of their businesses because it has been doing so badly. But as a small company, we've been trying to hang on to the lower bits of what is left of the construction industry.
Construction is predominantly a male-dominated industry. Mati is one of the growing number of women who are changing the face of the industry. And although earning one's stripes here is more challenging, she says perseverance ultimately pays off.
It's important to have vision, it's important to be confident in your abilities and to stand your ground and to cement where you are.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor. Let's catch up with our reporter Nozintombi Mia, who's been following that story about the new coronavirus app that the National Department of Health has been encouraging us to sign up for free to help with contact tracing. Nozintombi, thanks so much indeed for joining us. You did that story on this app. I'm just wondering, what were you able to find out, and what are some of the concerns that people have been sharing?
Thank you so much for having me, Peter. You know, it was quite interesting when we started doing our investigation around this particular COVID app. I mean, this app hasn't been in the country for very long. It's only been in the country for about 3 weeks. And in that 3 weeks already, the app has had an almost polarizing effect on society, with one half of society advocating for the use of this app, and the other sector of society completely against this app because they feel that their privacy is going to be invaded and that government would be trying to locate them or trying to download their private data and monitor their movements. And what we do know from, the experts who've been dealing with bringing this app into the country is that the app uses Bluetooth technology. So that means that once you've downloaded the app, it doesn't take your location details. It doesn't take any private details such as your name, your surname. This app is completely anonymous and only uses Bluetooth technology to upload the user onto the system. And how it works, Peter, is that everybody needs to download this app. And anybody that has tested positive and has inputted their positive details onto this app will stay as a notification on the app. So if me and you are within 2 meters of somebody who's tested positive and we've both downloaded this app, it will simply ping on our app to let us know that we have been in contact with somebody who has tested positive for COVID. So it's almost like an early warning detection system.
Right.
So you can see how this would have a sort of a polarizing effect where people would be afraid that their private details would be taken by government and stored in some government files to trace people. But you can also see how this app could be a very useful app in helping healthcare workers track and trace people who have had exposure to somebody who's tested positive for COVID, Peter.
All right, so could some of this confusion be because in other parts of the world, I believe that they actually do use things like GPS, and so they can track where you are, and that maybe people have been watching the news abroad and assuming that it's the same application here?
Yes, Peter, you know, there are actually 2 ways in which this particular app could be promulgated to society. But what the Department of Health has done in consultation with other big users, such as the cell phone providers in the country, such as media and digital experts in the country, they've actually gotten, the Department of Health has actually gotten quite a large number of experts to weigh in before the app was even while the app was still in the planning phases, and to see how that app is going to work in South Africa. And in that planning phase, a lot of them said that in the 2 different ways in which the app can be used and distributed in South Africa, one could be specifically the Bluetooth technology, which works as a pinging system, an early warning pinging system onto a user's cell phone, or the one that does alert the user and tracks the user's location. And what the experts were saying is that it's actually unconstitutional to track a user's location, to track a user's personal details. So for the South African context, the app that we're using is specifically the app that only uses Bluetooth technology. It does not trace a person's location. It does not trace the user's personal or private information. It is, in effect, an anonymous early warning detection system. And you can see, because I think with the Department of Health and other healthcare experts, the app is still in the very beginning phase. I mean, there's only about 2 million users who are active on this app. In a country of 56 million people, 2 million users is barely a drop in the ocean. And for the app to actually be effective, we need more people to become users. And this is where it's so important for the Department of Health, for healthcare users, to actually go out there and do roadshows to actually explain what this app is about, place adverts on social media, adverts on radio, adverts on television, to explain how this app works, how it will not trace a person's location, how it will not gather a person's private information and privacy details, and it will only work really as an early warning pinging system. We need to be able to effectively use the 4th Industrial Revolution mechanisms at our disposal, such as apps like these, to be able to really penetrate, the parts of our country that are not, that don't have access, the rural parts where there are people who are living in disadvantaged backgrounds, to be able to actually bring them into the broader sector. It's only through working together in being able to track and trace the numbers of COVID infections, community infections, where we will be able to actually get a handle on the coronavirus. I mean, we are heading towards a second wave. It's anticipated that the second wave won't be as hectic as the first wave, but we do need to find a system that's going to help not just the health department, not just healthcare workers, but companies private individuals to be able to detect, have an early warning system to detect when they have been around exposure to COVID, so that they can find a faster way to track and trace. How amazing would it be to be able to do a tracking and tracing of any people who have been exposed to the virus within less than 3 days, and to be able to nip that in the bud, Peter?
All right, Nozintombi Mia, thanks so much indeed for giving us an update on this new app that we've been asked to engage in, and let's hope that we all fall behind and get involved and make it useful. Thanks so much indeed. That was our SABC reporter Nozintombi Mia talking to us about this app. Sign up. The bottom line is that it is safe. It's not tracking your personal details and your locations. Using Bluetooth technology, it's going to be warning us about people around us, and also giving us a better handle of where these concentrations are, and contact tracing for the health department. Sign up, sign up, sign up. All right, let's take a quick break. Stay with us.
In this tough COVID-19 times, the nation looking to government for solutions. But the fight against the pandemic has been plagued by widespread corruption. The lives of frontline workers put at risk, and citizens denied of much needed aid and personal protective equipment. The president assured the nation that he would deal with corruption decisively. Will there be any action against the corrupt, or will it be business as usual? Watch SABC News for ongoing coverage on COVID-19 corruption. SABC News, independent, impartial.
We live in a new high-tech environment. Because of technology, some of the world's wealthier people are tech entrepreneurs. Tech is how we play and how we work. For your tech conversation, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor. Now, this past week, police in Cameroon detained at least 8 journalists covering protests, searched the homes of 4 of them, and seized or destroyed their equipment. Ta Javis Mai, a freelance journalist, returned Thursday to his office in the English-speaking southwestern Cameroon town of Boué. Mai said that he was arrested by police in the French-speaking coastal city of Douala on Tuesday whilst reporting on protests against President Paul Biya. 2 journalists were allegedly attacked whilst covering alleged voter fraud in recently concluded Edo governorship elections. The journalists were identified as Samson Adenkan, a reporter with an online news medium Premium Times, as well as Ofem Nathaniel Obanga, who's a cameraman with the privately owned online broadcaster GTV Africa. Details of the attack indicate that on Saturday, September the 19th, the day of the Edo polls, a group of at least 50 unidentified men attacked Adenkan and Ubanga whilst they were separately covering the election. The incident allegedly took place in Iyomo town in Edo State. All right, now it's time for us to take you back in time in our Back in History feature. And this week we take you back to the year 2000, the 3rd of March to be exact, when the South African government intervened to help Mozambique after heavy rainfall that lasted for 5 weeks, which left many devastated and homeless. This is how the SABC carried the story at the time.
Friday evening's news at 8. Good evening to you. The South African government is stepping in to help flood victims in Mozambique's Inhambane province. Operation Holder, a joint operation between South African and Mozambican government troops, will get off the ground tonight. 12 people died in the province and at least 2 coastal towns have been cut off from the outside world.
The coastal town of Inyasoro and Vilankulu were flooded last week when more than 1,300 millimeters of rain fell in 4 days. Since then, the heavy rains have not stopped, and last night more damage was caused when 180 millimeters fell in just over an hour over the town of Vilankulu. Rivers have burst their banks and bridges on the main and secondary roads have been washed away. Bridges on the main tarred road that links Maputo with the north of Mozambique gave in under the water pressure, and long stretches of roads have collapsed. Some of the roads have been damaged beyond repair. 5 fishermen drowned when this bridge near Inyarim collapsed under them. The disaster area stretches from Inyarim, 400 kilometers north of Maputo, to Inyasoro, 800 kilometers up the Mozambican coastline. At Vilankulu, which can only be reached by plane, houses and streets have been flooded and people have run out of food supplies. 50 kilometers to the north, Inyasoro has been completely cut off from the mainland and can only be reached by boat or helicopter. A number of houses were swept into the sea when the flood hit town.
Inside, I've got water, my bed, all is there in for my house. That's my heart. And I don't know what I can do about it. That's wet and the rain.
Now that the bridge has been washed out, we can't go to Vilankulu, we can't get in Inyasoro. I reckon in 4 months we won't cut any timber. We can't get in the bush. The truck, as you can see, is still fishing around the water there.
It's affecting me quite severe, so because we can't move either south or north, and there's no business going at all. Nothing coming in, nothing going out whatsoever. Yeah.
We can't get to our site yet in Inyasoro. It's totally cut off from the sea and from the land. My people walked last Friday night to Vilankulus, about 40 kilometers, just to come and tell me how everything is underwater.
The rainy season in Mozambique is not yet over, and repair works to the damaged road and infrastructure in Inhambane province will take months to complete. Meanwhile, Mozambicans are faced with another problem. The stagnant water masses are a perfect breeding ground for the malaria mosquito and the cholera virus. James Barkhuizen, SABC, Inhambane province, Mozambique.
Vito ra mina I Hlengani Patrick Mavasa ni mudyondzisi exikolweni xa Hanyanyani ni sungule ku tumbuluxa leswaku Hanyanyani ku va na mini cricket. Vanhu hinkwavo lava va ri ku voneni ka television hi siku leri ra 18 February 2018 loko ni fanele nika man of the match exikarhini ka Afrika-Dzonga na India va swi tiva leswaku ri SABC ya swi kota ku fikelela na le ka tindhawu tele kule laha ku nga kule swinene na laha migingiriko ya cricket yi tlanga kona. Swikolo swa Giyani swa swi tlanga mini cricket swi sukile eka 6 swi va 18 hi vito ra SABC Sport.
Cabinet decided that the country should now move to alert level 1. The move to alert level 1 will mean a further easing of restrictions on gatherings. The maximum number of people who may attend a funeral is increased from 50 to 100. Existing restrictions on sporting events remain in place. The sale of alcohol at retail outlets for home consumption is now permitted from Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 1700. We will be allowing travel into and out of South Africa for business, leisure, and other travel with effect from the 1st of October. The curfew will now apply between midnight and 4 a.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Media Monitor. Now, dwindling print circulations of newspapers and magazines has been a common theme for nearly 2 decades now. And so the closure in recent years and months of a number of high-profile publications and media houses has not been a huge surprise, especially now with the disruption caused by the Fourth Industrial Revolution, social media, and more recently, of course, the global pandemic COVID-19. So why would Daily Maverick launch a new print title in these mad times? I mean, we've seen Caxton and CTP publishers and printers of food and home and people announced earlier this year that it had begun the process of withdrawing from magazine publishing. This soon after Associated Media Publishing announced that it would be shutting its doors after 38 years in the media business. The titles affected were household names like Bona, Garden and Home, People, Roos, Vroke, Woman and Home, and Your Family. And it seems advertising and readers have shifted from print to online, pointing perhaps to what the future holds. And it's against this backdrop that the online news publication Daily Maverick has launched its weekend print newspaper called Daily Maverick 168. Is this a bold move, or as some might think, a mad gamble? Well, let's find out. To tell us more about this new print newspaper, we're now joined by a woman who's a career writer and editor herself with well over 2 decades experience in print, broadcast and digital media. She's a former editor-in-chief of the Herald and the Weekend Post, and she was deputy editor at the Sunday Times and Elle magazine and a features editor at Tribute magazine and the Sunday World. And she's now the editor of this newly launched Daily Maverick 168. Heather Robertson, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you, Peter. Good to be here.
All right, so some people might think, what on earth do you know that the rest of the world don't? That whilst publications are folding, newspaper circulation is down, that you, in the middle of a pandemic, would actually launch a newspaper. Tell us what you know that everyone else doesn't know.
I think everyone does know what we know, but they're just not actually banking on it. What we do know is that people need trusted information. What we do know is that there is a surfeit of fake news and false information all over social media. And that what we also know, particularly after COVID, during the COVID-19 pandemic, is that people need reliable, trusted information. And the Daily Maverick, which has been around for over 10 years now, has developed a reputation for delivering that reliable, trusted information. And all that we are doing is creating another platform for that good quality journalism that we have online, and creating that platform in print. What we're doing differently is we're making it available for free for pick and pay smart shopper card owners. So anyone who's got a smart shopper card gets the paper for free. So there isn't, while it has a cover price, if you're a smart shopper, you can actually go and pick up your paper and get it for free. And that's the different model that we have. And we're using a lot of data that we have with our current and existing insiders. We have over 14,000 who are actually supporting our quality journalism on a monthly basis. So that's what we know, and that's what we're doing. And we believe that the public deserves to have a good quality read every week.
All right, so let's talk.
And the more quality journalism there is out there, the better for the public.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the readers. Are you saying that people do want to read long format news? I mean, you know, we're in the world of Twitter and 40 characters. Are people prepared to turn pages of broadsheets?
You won't believe it, Peter. Yes. people are actually tired of only receiving those quick snacks and having to go down the rabbit hole of the internet. They want a curated experience. And that's what we are doing. We're curating the experience that we have created online, and we're curating it for those who would like to sit back and actually read those articles. We've also found, I mean, the whole thing about long-form journalism, Daily Maverick is based on long-form journalism. People are reading our long-form journalism on their smartphones, on their laptops. So it's a bit of a myth. Because, I mean, there's sites like the Medium, which has long-form journalism. The Correspondent has long-form journalism. So the myth of people only wanting shorts, only Twitter bites is not entirely true, because they're also linking into long-form journalism on Twitter as well. So people do want to be informed, they do want to know more and to know better.
All right, so what's going to be different between the online experience and the print experience? I mean, I'm old school, grey hair. I want to hold a newspaper in my hand and turn the pages, and I love it when it's fresh and it's new and it's crisp and I open those pages. But young people sort of swipe screens. That's what they know. So what's going to be the difference in the experience, not just holding it, but the actual reading and going through a paper as opposed to going through online?
You know what we found? The founders, Steli Karlambos and Branko Bricic, what they found is that we are producing so much online content every single day that often it's only the lead stories or the top stories or the top stories on the screen that are actually picked up. So there's a bunch of other stories that are not noticed, okay? So what is going to be different is that what we're doing with the newspaper is curating a finite experience for you. We are carefully selecting content, both from our journalists. Sometimes that content, particularly the upfront stories, is going to be fresh, and it will be published first in the newspaper, and then you will be able to access it online simultaneously or at a later stage. So that's the difference, is that the paper experience is curated, and it's also has to be edited, because you can't have as long stories as we have in the Daily Maverick online. I mean, sometimes the stories could run to like 4,000, 5,600 words, whereas the average word count on a print page is 1,500 words. So that's the difference. It's the newspaper is an edited, curated experience. But the other amazing thing is that because we're actually digital first, we're not like the former publications that I worked for, which are legacy publications, which were print first, and the whole news cycle had to transform into accommodating digital first publishing, etc. Daily Maverick has the advantage of having been a digital first publisher from the word go when it started. So what we're doing is we've introduced, and you will see scattered all over the newspaper, QR codes. So for example, and I'm going to you look at our podcast page, our weekend review page. You click on that, and then you automatically go to a podcast. You want to read the longer form article, because obviously in the newspaper the articles are edited. You click and you'll get to the longer form article if you want to read more. If you want to read, the amazing thing about the internet is that you can link. That you can actually, you're reading a story and you actually want to know more about it and what happened before that. You click a link and you go there, and that's the beauty of the internet. How we've adapted the print to include that beauty of the internet is that if you want to go deeper into story and you want to read other stories, you click that QR code with your cell phone and you go back in there. So I think we're in an advantage because we were digital first, and we are constantly iterating and including that digital first experience into the newspaper as well.
Wow. I wish I could talk to you for much longer, running out of time, but where can we get this paper?
So please, a lot of people are struggling to find the paper. The paper is at select Pick n Pay stores in Gauteng, so Johannesburg and Pretoria, in Cape Town, and all along the Western Cape, right up to Plettenberg Bay. It's also in KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban, Pietermaritzburg, and surrounds all the way up to Ballito. but there are specific Pick n Pay stores in those cities. Please log on to the Daily Maverick website and you would be able to see exactly which Pick n Pay store actually has the newspaper.
All right. Heather, we wish you the best of luck. We will be watching and supporting you, so I look forward to more chats in the future to see how things are going.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, so that's Heather Robertson, who's the editor of the new Daily Maverick 168 newspaper. And yeah, go look out for it. It's in Pick n Pay shops mostly that will be taking a look. All right, right now we cross to Blaine Herman, who anchors the agenda from 10 to 1 o'clock this morning. And to find out what's coming up on the show, let's catch up with him. Blaine, a very good morning to you.
Hey Peter, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for coming to us. It's shaping up to be a packed 4-hour program today. Lots of live events taking place on a Sunday. President Cyril Ramaphosa, you'll remember, has issued the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula with a formal reprimand for transporting an ANC delegation to Zimbabwe on an aircraft of the South African Air Force. We will be getting political reaction with regards to this latest development. Also, the Gauteng Education MEC, Panyaza Lusufi, will update parents on the latest developments regarding the 2021 online admissions placement process for grades 1 and 8. That's happening at 11 o'clock. Also, Peter, it's World Tourism Day today, and look, it comes at a time when the world is facing an unprecedented global health challenge, health crisis, the repercussions of which are being felt in all sectors of society and the economy. But tourism, in particular, is one of the worst affected. And according to an article I read on the United Nations World Tourism Organization website, international tourist arrivals plunged 93% in June when compared to 2019. According to the new issue of the World Tourism Barometer from the United Nations Specialized Agency, international tourist arrivals dropped by 65% during the first half of this year. Now this represents, Peter, an unprecedented decrease, you would agree. But as restrictions on travel begin to ease globally, destinations around the world are focusing on growing this domestic tourism sector. Some are even offering incentives to encourage people to explore their own countries. And we know that tourism in this country is one of the most important economic sectors. It provides jobs, it provides livelihoods, it supports many local businesses. And the President, Ramaphosa, announced that South Africa is ready to open its doors again to the world and invite travelers to enjoy all this country has to offer in safety and confidence. So on the question of the day, we ask you, if you have the means, do you plan to travel abroad on a holiday? Do you plan to keep it local or not travel at all? You can send us your thoughts at @theagenda_SABC. That's all coming up between 10 and 2. Peter?
Yeah, we'll be tuned in and ready to watch. Blaine, thanks very much indeed. So that's the agenda coming up at 10 o'clock. All right, so let's go straight to our international editor feature for this week, and we head to Ivory Coast, a country that's working its way towards elections and has experienced some unrest as the country's President Alassane Ouattara has decided to seek a third term in office. To tell us more about what the media has been reporting in Côte d'Ivoire, we're now joined by a South African journalist who's now a news correspondent based in Abidjan, Liane de Bassompierre. Liane, thanks so much for joining us. Good to have you on the program. And we miss you here in South Africa. How is Côte d'Ivoire?
Well, things are getting quite interesting, Peter. As you rightly said, elections in exactly 5 weeks' time. Things are really heating up. As you know, President Alassane Ouattara announced on August 6th that he would be seeking a third term just a month after his chosen successor passed away, unfortunately. So things are heating up. There were several isolated protests that took place. The death tolls about 15 now, several hundred injured in those protests. But Juxtaposed to that, since the opposition called for a civil obedience campaign last week Sunday, there hasn't really been that much of an uptake to those protests. So, of course, I'm watching things very, very closely as we head to those October 31st polls.
All right, so the media, there's one thing that I see is that there's so many newspapers in Côte d'Ivoire. What's that about?
It's actually difficult to keep up with the different papers. I try to read as widely as possible. But Peter, one of the things that I actually like, and you've seen in the different newspaper titles that I've sent through to you, is that they actually have several headlines on the paper, because you'll see on, especially Monday mornings, they don't really have a culture of Sunday papers, but Monday mornings you'll see several front pages up on street corners across the main cities and even villages, and you'll see people gathered around and really reading the front pages of the newspapers, which I think is a culture that we don't necessarily have in South Africa. And so you'll see people around, especially if there's been big news over the weekend. For example, this particular weekend, President Alassane Ouattara, he wrapped up his 31st regional visit across his almost 10 years in office. He had a press conference at the end of that, and we were allowed to ask him questions, about anything not particular to the specific visit. And so, of course, people will be anxiously awaiting these newspaper headlines on Monday morning. They will gather around on the street corners. They will read the not necessarily the stories, but they will have a look at the front pages of those newspapers, which really give quite a lot of detail to what you can expect in the newspapers. They'll discuss it. There'll be some heated arguments and debates. And I often take an early morning stroll around the economic capital, Abidjan, just to see that and to see people's reactions to the stories that have unfolded either the day before or over the weekend.
And do these papers, are they quite partisan in their reporting, like we see in the United States and in Europe? I mean, here in South Africa, we still try to be fair and balanced in everything that we do. But I find that in other parts of the world, you can pick up a paper and you know that this is pro this is anti that. What's the situation in Côte d'Ivoire?
No. It is very interesting. That's why you have to read very widely. It's difficult to find a completely independent local paper. You have the state-owned newspaper where you'll have obviously everything that's being run by the state. You'll have whatever tenders are being processed through that newspaper, which is Fraternité Matin. And then most of them are owned by political parties or somebody that's closely involved with political parties. And that's why, in our conversations previously, there were 44 candidates, and those candidates are mainly, one-man shows, but they will have some kind of investment in newspapers that will kind of be promoting what their projects or proposed projects are. And so, yes, as I said, very difficult to find completely independent newspapers. So it's important to read widely, both newspapers, of course, different social media, television, radio, etc.
All right. Leanne, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but we will certainly be catching up with you again in the near future to get a sense of what's happening in that part of the world. Abidjan, beautiful city. I was there a couple of years ago. Very nice there. And but thanks so much indeed. À bientôt.
À bientôt. Au revoir.
Bye-bye. That's Leanne de Bassompierre, who you may have seen and heard in South Africa as a journalist here for many, many years, but now as a news correspondent out in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. And we'll be crossing to her from time to time, getting updates from West Africa. Right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll delve into the local newspapers and see what those front pages are telling us.
the much talked about oversight inspection of the Bait Bridge border fence.
We're expecting a fence that is 2.2 meters up high, but we are seeing a fence that is 1.8 meters high. As you can see, it's already rusting as compared to a fence that was put in by March.
There is no doubt that this fence is a total sham. It is not fit for purpose, and the South African taxpayers have been robbed.
Right, welcome back. We are busy trying to get hold of our local editor to take us through our newspapers, the front pages thereof, and interesting stories I've got to tell you. Let's start with the Sunday Times, for example. And it's quite a shocking story. You would have heard this time last weekend we spoke about Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kinnear, who was shot and killed. Assassination really is the best way to describe it. And essentially what is now coming through is that he was investigating high-level crime and corruption in the police force at head office, of all places, at the Central Firearms Registry. And, well, let's try and get our guest now in the Free State to help us unpack these newspapers. And we are joined by Piers van Heerden from the Bloemfontein Courant. Piers, thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you for having me.
Good to talk to you again. We don't have a lot of time, so let's grab one of the stories that particularly caught your attention. Which paper was it that caught your attention?
Okay, the paper that I read that caught my attention, Peter, was the Sunday World. And the cover was inside Sauri's 34 million rand kickbacks, where it focused on ministers and state officials that scored about 34 million rand in kickbacks. So the focus on the article was on controversial businessman in Edwin Zodi, who allegedly made billions from contracts. So among some of the recipients are the Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nxesi, and Deputy Minister of State Security, Zizi Kodwa. And I think what caught my attention mostly was that Saudi is also the director of Blackhead, a company that was appointed the asbestos contract in the Free State for about 255 million rand. And I did some research on that, and I came across articles which indicated that the Department of Human Settlement did not follow the correct process when it approved proposals for the asbestos audit project, and that the process was flawed, as well as a few years later there was little to show. So that means that state funds were not utilized correctly, or to benefit South African citizens as well. So it all comes down to how ministers and state officials benefit from tenders for their own personal gain, while the people on the ground, your normal citizens, are the people who pay the price in the end.
All right. You know what? We're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. But thanks so much indeed for joining us on the program. We will certainly get hold of you again and speak for a little bit longer next time. But thanks so much indeed for today.
Thank you.
All right, okay, and that's where we're going to have to say goodbye to you at home as well. Thanks very much indeed for watching Media Monitor. We hope that you'll join us again at the same time next week for more of the same. In the meantime, please take care of each other, play safe, and be more vigilant now that we're at level 1. Take care, everyone. Have a great week.